Excited to be able to share with you on SEL Day. It's an honor and a privilege. And I'm sharing with you on how to add SEL in and not on to everyday curriculum and instruction. Key thing is that you're going to be getting a copy of this video and the PowerPoint. So I'm going to be going pretty quickly because I want to cover the landscape, and then you'll have plenty of opportunity on the PowerPoint to go into the details, and then obviously to follow up with me and us at SEL for NJ to push the work farther. So what I mean by this is that we've got to focus on how we add SEL into what we're already doing, because right now we're in a time when it's hard to just add on anything, no matter how wonderful it is. We're all kind of up to here. So I want to show you in social studies, history, English language arts, visual and performing arts, science, and advisories across the grade levels, how we can really bring in SEL and amplify it when it's already there. So, of course, when we talk about SEL, we're talking about the basic CASEL 5 skills. And we're in a time now, post-COVID, where we know that putting programs into play takes a number of years. And so while we're doing that, if we're going to do that, or if maybe it's just too much to do, the idea of activating the existing SEL skills that people have is a really viable strategy. And when I use the term SEL, I'm also referring to SECD, social, emotional, and character development. The whole idea that skills move us forward, but it's our character and virtue and values that give us direction. And it's essential to make sure that our kids are heading toward a positive purpose, that they feel valued, useful, and welcomed in schools, and that we have a school climate that is not marked by tsunamis, but nice and smooth waters so that we can make our journey as pleasant as possible. And when we do that, SEL makes our valued outcomes happen. SEL is like a catalyst for making things better. And we need that because our schoolhouses are pretty jumbled. Some of you have seen this before, others not, but we're doing fantastic things in this school, amazing things, so many things. We keep adding more and more things onto what we're doing. And so the challenge is, how do we create synergy where now we just have a lot of stuff? And so that's the whole point of social, emotional, and character development. It helps our schools tell a story, helps us establish what our schools stand for, and then it organizes our activities so that they're all heading sort of in one basic direction, preparing our kids for success in school and life. So the first thing is that SEL tells us how we have to honor the time we're in. And so here are some things that SEL tells us to do that are not add-ons, but add-ins. Make sure people feel seen and heard. Make sure we're creating a climate of comfort and respect. How do we maximize the number of contributions that people make? How do we make sure that everybody has a chance to be a helper? It is so gratifying to be able to help someone else, especially when we're experiencing difficulties in our own lives. We want to have words and a climate of reassurance. We don't want to be walking around with gloom and doom. People don't learn best in a context of gloom and doom. And we also must learn to receive and give caring, kindness, help, and appreciation. That's what people need now. People don't need a lot of criticism, and they don't need a lot of negativity. They need to be able to feel like they're catching a break. And that relates to being understood with empathy. We're all affected by trauma. Don't assume that just because you don't know about someone's trauma, they're not feeling it. Assume they are feeling it. And give them that extra bit of empathy. And that also leads to one very practical consideration. Be prepared to repeat yourself. Please, let me say that again. Be prepared to, well, none of us listen at our best when we're under stress. And so even though we know we said this to students or our colleagues 2, 3, 4 times, they may not have heard it. If they don't seem to know or they ask you to say it again, please do so with grace. And give reminders. Don't assume people have understood the first time you say something. Prompts, cues, reminders are essential right now. And try to be a little playful. We all need a little playfulness. We know that humor actually is so enhancing of creativity and biologically incompatible with stress. So wherever you can bring some playfulness into your work, it's going to actually add to the benefits. These are all things that are spoken to us by SEL. And there's more, right? Please be sure to create a culture of caring, kindness, and helping. See, we know the role of emotion in learning. And when we create this kind of a climate, we optimize how much our students are going to learn. And make sure that caring and kindness are the norm and not the exception. In other words, it's not just certain people you care about, not certain groups you care about, not certain ethnicities, races, ability, disability, genders. You're in a school for 180 school days as a school community. Caring and kindness are the norm for everyone without exception. That's what SEL is telling us. And also, think ahead, right? Think about what the kids are experiencing. Have conversations, especially from grades 4, 5, and up. What should you do in my class if you're feeling anxious about an assignment or a project? What should you do if you're just feeling really upset by losses in your life? What should you do if you're confused? Make those pathways clear to kids. That's what SEL is telling us we need to do right now, as well as understand when our students and how our students learn at their best, right? So you'll get this listing of resources when you eventually get the PowerPoint. Now let's talk about inspiring youth action and the role of service in our schools. Albert Schweitzer said, "One thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are the ones who will have sought and found how to serve." And Martin Luther King Jr. one-upped him and said, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. The key to our students' mental health and academic achievement is the capacity to care for others, to be able to serve. And that requires some skill building. We want to make sure that our kids are not just going to be complainers. We want to make sure that they're going to not just be bystanders. We want to make sure they're not going to feel defeated. We want to make sure they're active, upstanders, and engaged in their schools and their classes. So how do we do that? Well, we have to help them understand that if we are united and not untied, we can accomplish more. It all depends on where you put the I. And we want our kids to feel like they are empowered. And so strategies from this book, Students Taking Action Together, 5 Teaching Techniques to Cultivate SEL, Civic Engagement, and a Healthy Democracy, really talk about how to integrate SEL into a whole range of subject matter, primarily focusing on history and social studies. It does this by activating primarily these 5 SEL skills. It doesn't teach the skills. It activates them. They're already in all of us. We all have the capacity for empathy, perspective taking, communication, problem solving, and emotion regulation. What we need to do is have pedagogies in the course of delivering our regular content that activate these. And so we've got 5 pedagogical strategies. One is classroom norms, which I've alluded to, create classroom norms of caring, kindness, sharing, and consideration. That opens up the door to learning. Yes, no, maybe, respectful debate, a planned problem-solving strategy, and audience-focused communications, which is where we teach our students explicitly to pay attention to who you're delivering your messages to, and how do you craft your message to the people and the context in which your message is going to be delivered. This is a skill of such tremendous importance. Some of you may know that I write a blog for Edutopia. Well, I was used to academic writing, which is long and sometimes complicated sentences, long paragraphs, etc. In order to write for Edutopia, I had to learn audience-focused communication. I had to learn how to write completely differently. And that's something that our kids are going to have to learn also. How do I learn how to communicate what I know in different ways to different people at different times? So let me talk about yes, no, maybe. This is the most widely applicable, easy, powerful technique to add in and not on. It develops habits of respectful listening, engaged dialogue, and peer opinion sharing. So it starts with a statement. People can learn to change their character or behavior. You can talk about either one in the sentence you give your kids. And then you ask your kids, after they've heard that statement, whether they agree with it, yes, disagree, no, or they're not sure if that's a correct statement, maybe. Then you ask them to go to typically different corners of the room. Go to that side of the room, said yes, that side no, back of the room maybe. Pair up with 2 or 3 kids around you and discuss. Why did you say yes? Why did you say no? Why did you say maybe? Even if all the kids said yes, it's still a worthwhile activity, because when they eventually share out why they said yes, kids will hear different reasons. And this is the key to peer opinion sharing. This is the problem of polarization in our society, is that people aren't used to hearing views other than their own. When you do yes, no, maybe, you're going to hear views other than your own, reasons other than your own, from people you might be surprised to hear that from, especially as you do this multiple times in a classroom across different subject areas, right? And after the kids discuss in their groups, share out from their little groups, the teacher then thanks you and asks you to sit down. The teacher doesn't summarize. The teacher doesn't evaluate. All the teacher is trying to do is facilitate the sharing, the peer opinion sharing process, right? Now, let's think for a minute of all the ways this can happen. The best way is if you start out with a do now of yes, no, maybe question. Kids make their statements. Then you go into the material in your curriculum, whatever it is that you are planning to study. The kids do various readings about the topic. They work on different projects. And then you have them do another round of yes, no, maybe, and see, have their views changed? Has their reasoning changed? Why or why not? So this is an incredibly effective pedagogical strategy. Here are some examples of yes, no, maybe prompts, and think about them yourself, about ones that you might use in your context. There is nothing students can do to change the food that is served in the cafeteria. These are adult decisions. Yes, no, maybe. What happened at the Capitol on January 6, 2021 does not require any more public discussion. Yes, no, maybe. We read too many plays by Shakespeare, not enough by modern authors outside the Western culture. Civil War was fought about states' rights more than about slavery. Now, the key thing is to make sure that you recognize that any of these statements can be reversed. And you disavow, when you present these statements, that this is not your personal opinion. It is basically a statement about which you want to get the kids' opinions. And so these and many others can be very powerful. Look in your curriculum, visual and performing arts. Consider statements about museums. Consider statements about the intent behind specific artistic work, where you ask the kids to think about, why do you think the author, the artist created this? In English language arts, did the way an author executed the next step in the story or portray a character seem right to you? Imagine you're reading a picture book and you read through chapter 4. And so now you're going to have a yes, no, maybe about what the author should do in chapter 5 before they've read it. And then they read chapter 5, they come back and reconsider the yes, no, maybe, right? So All you're activating some wonderful SEL skills, literally every one of the Castle Five, and still you're within the structure of your curriculum. In science, consider statements about clean energy initiatives, climate change, or vaccines. I have listened to fascinating yes, no, maybes about whether inventions were ultimately helpful. Is the cell phone a helpful invention? Yes, no, maybe. Is the atomic bomb
Middle of a meeting.
a
What's up?
a
You back?
helpful invention? Yes, no, maybe. Right? How about the thermometer? Right? In your advisories, you can use yes, no, maybes all the time to engage kids on issues relating to the school. Should we be wearing uniforms? Should we be able to use our phones? What about the misuse of bathrooms or rampant cheating in our school? Right? Think about things like this. All schools should have metal detectors for the protection of students and staff. There are a bunch of our kids who go to schools with their metal detectors, but they also need a chance to think about, understand, and express their views about those metal detectors. And how about the bottom one? Students should participate in school committees about bullying, drugs, and alcohol, and discipline. Imagine what happens when kids start to even get the idea that they can participate in these things. And imagine how much they would bring to those committees that right now are dominated very much by adults. Another key strategy besides yes, no, maybe is a problem-solving strategy. We refer to it as plan. And it's like many problem-solving strategies that are embedded within SEL curricula. There's nothing magical about this one, but if you don't have one that you're using, this one works just fine, where you think about the problem, think about options and alternatives, develop an action plan, and then look at what happened to see if you could have done and thought about it in a different way. Here's with the current problem in school, cheating on tests, right? So we take the problem cheating on tests. We start out with a yes, no, maybe. Since so many people cheat on assignments or tests, if you don't, you're at a disadvantage. Kids do a yes, no, maybe. Then we give them the plan framework, and they start to, in subgroups, work through these questions. What was the problem that those who cheated were trying to solve? What is the issue like from their perspective? This is the idea that even when people do things that are highly disagreeable to you, better not to think of them as evil, better to try to understand, what were they thinking? How were they thinking about this? What were their feelings? What is the perspective of all the people involved in cheating, including the students who are not involved in cheating? Then they list options about what else could be done, think about the decisions that were ultimately made, and think about how action planning can take place in a way that would deter cheating in a school, right? And audience-focused communication. Once we talk about this cheating problem in our classroom, well, how do we take the ideas out of the classroom? Do we want to talk to the student council? Do we want to talk to a vice principal or dean of discipline, right? This is something that gets done in the course of an advisory and doesn't substitute for anything else. It becomes your content. Let me give you two quick examples from one of the most exciting areas of New Jersey visual and performing arts, where SEL for NJ and ArtsEd New Jersey have come together to create a crosswalk of SEL competencies with the artistic processes that are mandated in the arts education curriculum. And you'll see some websites down here that will give you lots more detail. But let me show you an example of how SEL gets added in and on through the process of the arts. Imagine having kids looking at these two pictures and asking the question, what are the similarities? What are the differences? Let them understand that these two pictures had two different creators. And eventually they will find out that context of the picture on the left by Norman Rockwell and the context of the picture on the right by Hank Willis Thomas and Emily Shore were quite different. And these two pictures are products of their time. But getting kids to look at the details, understanding similarities, understanding differences, articulating that carefully, and then getting to the point of asking the kids, if you were taking on what these two artists took on, and that is depicting freedom from want, how would you do it differently? Use plan to understand how you would create a picture now in 2023 that would be different or similar from the ones that are here, right? So again, the arts curriculum determines the content, but SEL pedagogy can be woven into it and deepen the understanding of the content. Another example, getting kids, again, looking at a picture like this, the yes, no, maybe is, this picture shows a community at peace. Yes, no, maybe. Some kids look at this and they do think the answer is yes, because they're focused a little bit more on the right side of the picture. Other kids say no because they're focused on the left side of the picture. Other kids say maybe because they're focused on the whole picture. And just think about all the SEL skills that are activated by posing the question and having the kids do the yes, no, maybe. And of course, you wouldn't just show any picture at random. You'd be showing a picture or having a musical composition that they react to that is in the context of your existing curriculum. That's the key here. It's the pedagogy applied to the existing curriculum. Well, somehow this got into the slide deck again. I can't take responsibility for that, but there it is, students taking action together. Lots of specific examples of the kind that I just showed you. I want to give you a couple more quick ideas of how SEL can be woven in and not on. Help your kids with goal setting. Start of the school year, at the start of a marking period, it's so valuable to have kids set goals in 4 areas. How do I make myself better? What are 2 or 3 ways in which I hope to make myself better? What are 2, 3 or 3 ways I hope to make my classroom or group better? What are 2 or 3 ways I can make my school or program better? And what are 2 or 3 ways I can make the wider community and the world better? Do you know that our kids, when we first introduce this to many of them, have a really hard time with the second, third, and fourth bullet points, because they don't really know that they can make their classroom better. They don't know they can make their school better, and they don't know they can make their world better. And yet, we need our kids to have those expectations, because that leads them to want to grow, learn, serve, and care for other people. So goal setting is a critical thing. And in addition to that, it's helping kids develop a sense of purpose. And how do we get our kids to start to think about that? Well, it's a longer process, but I would just say that there are 3 levels. First, let them use the concept of purpose to analyze a well-known individual via a book, biography, current event. Talk about, what do you think that person's purpose was? Then have kids talk to well-known individuals like first responders, community leaders, clergy, family members, educators, and ask, what is your purpose? And then finally, we have the idea of getting the kids to write about their own sense of positive purpose. So these are things that there's much more information about that we can share. But the key point is that we need our kids to have that understanding of a sense of purpose, and the idea that they can have goals and aspirations that are not only about themselves, but how to make the world a better place around them. So there's other things here that you will see when you get the PowerPoint. I just want to say that for some of you that want to delve into this more, the Academy for SEL in Schools offers a certificate program in SEL instruction and SEL school leadership, where the focus really is on social, emotional character development and creating a kind of positive, supportive, warm school culture and climate. And if you go to selinschools.org or the website below, you'll be able to see much more information about this. And again, the focus of helping get SEL in and not on. So one of the key things we always like to reflect on is that children are like flowers. They grow toward the light. And so as we shine the light of optimism and possibility on all of our students, they will grow in that direction. And I just want to close with some words from Tererai Trent from Zimbabwe, who uses the term tinogona, which in her language means it is achievable. And that is what we've been talking about and what this whole day has been about, that these gains in SEL and SECD are achievable. It just requires us to do them. I thank you very much for the opportunity to present and look forward to your being able to get these materials.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Elias. That was really, really just fascinating. And wow, you crammed in a lot of information in 30 minutes in the best way. So as everyone heard, is that we will be sharing the PowerPoint and the recording. So, we'll just give us a day or so to get organized and it will be in your inboxes. So thank you very much. And again, for those of you who are wondering, SEL Day is trending and the examples of the amazing work you're all doing in your schools are just so inspirational. Get a chance to look through your Twitter thread, even if you haven't had a chance to today. It is just really it just brings joy to your heart to see all this great stuff going on. So what's going to happen now is we're going to take about a 10-15 minute break. You'll be able to see some nice artifacts. We have a little PowerPoint presentation to, that you can watch if you're going to be sticking with us for our very last workshop of the day, which is you'll learn about some resources that are free that allow you to connect with other educators, with colleagues in the same position, as well as receive some shared professional development. And then Dr. Patricia Heindel from the School Culture and Climate Initiative will be leading a deeper dive into SEL and school climate and the importance of a framework in really making it stick in your schools and the impact it can have. So we hope you'll be able to join us and we will see you all in a few minutes. So thank you very much, everyone. Happy